I don't often speak with notes or from written statements, but in my response to Jeff Hansen's talk to Sea Shepherd Australia's volunteers, I felt that I should have a written statement and that I can read that in order to make sure that it's accurately portrayed. Let me begin by saying that I've always liked Jeff. I supported him in establishing Sea Shepherd in Australia, and I have supported him ever since. So when I heard what he said at a recent meeting of volunteers, I was surprised, disappointed, and quite saddened to hear his explanation. As a member of the board of Sea Shepherd Australia and as a member of the global board, I did not discuss any recent events with Jeff Hansen at any time. The decision to dismiss me from the global board was made without calling a board meeting, without any discussion, and without calling for a vote. Both Lamia Essenlame, the president of Sea Shepherd France, and I were not notified of a meeting and were not notified of a vote. I simply received a message from Alex Cornelissen stating that the global board had made the decision to dismiss me. Jeff made numerous misleading statements and quite a few downright lies. Jeff opened the discussion by saying it was not an easy decision, yet it was a decision made without the involvement of 2 of the 6 global board members. He said there were many reasons, yet there was no explanation was given. He said, "We have much more on Paul that you don't know, but we won't tell you as we want to preserve his image." Really? Look, Jeff, if you have much more of whatever on me, please enlighten everyone. I have nothing to hide, and I'm curious about what kind of dirty laundry you are pretending to have. At least show me a dirty sock. This is very classic, and it's a manipulative statement that implies much but says very little, and is designed to sow doubts on my character. The first misleading statement. Jeff says I left the board of Sea Shepherd Conservation Society some time ago, and that was due to a number of factors, and that it was my own accord. I was not pushed off the board. The truth is that I was informed in 2019 that the board could not get director's insurance because of who I was and my history. I was asked to step down with the stipulation I would still sit on the board meetings and contribute to board decisions. But without any authority on the board, I was then marginalized, denied participation in meetings, and not made privy to information, agreements, and decision-making. New directors were added, others removed without my approval. Skilled and good people were fired and replaced by less skilled people. My objections were denied. The Bridget Bardot was sold against my objections. The White Holly was scrapped, and when Lockie McLean offered to pay $250,000 for it, his offer was declined because the board viewed Lockie as competition. The John Paul DeJoria and the Sharpie were scrapped without even notifying John Paul and Chris Sharp, who both were sponsoring the ships. The board purchased the Sharkwater against my advice. The Sharkwater, a luxury dive boat that needs a lot of work but ideal for providing a comfortable platform for scientists or observers, but not for interventions. Jeff then says that I claimed that I was removed from the website because it was my suggestion. Total lie. In fact, I was not removed from the SSCS website until after I resigned. My picture, my bio, my history, gone. In other words, they want to erase me from any association with the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. Jeff said that Sea Shepherd was trying to work with Costa Rica and there were legal issues because of me. Those legal issues were resolved in 2017, and in the film Watson, I am speaking with the Minister of the Environment of Costa Rica who invited me to work with Costa Rica. In response, I organized the White Holly to remove marine debris from Cocos Island. I absolutely never agreed to remove myself from the website. Jeff was not there. He has no credibility in saying such a thing. I was not removed from the website until after my resignation, until after I said I could no longer support or participate with the new direction that SSCS was intent on taking. Moving away from direct action, saying it was embarrassing and to be associated with my history, in other words, the actual history of Sea Shepherd. If Jeff says it was all about my ego, then why would he think that I would suggest removing my picture, bio, and history? Why would I erase myself if, as Jeff says, it was about my ego? Jeff said I was paid very well, and I started putting posts online that he claims were anti-Semitic. The post in question was made in 2018, and it was a repost of a post from Jews for Peace, of which I am a supporter. The post was critical of Palestinian children being killed. That is his evidence for his very inappropriate accusation of anti-Semitism? That is a serious accusation based on absolutely nothing. Criticism of Israeli violence against children is not anti-Semitism. Jeff did not even know of the post until he received his talking points from SSCS. At the time, in response to the criticism of that post, I removed it, and I never again made a post criticizing Israeli policy. Never again since 2017. He cited that I made a comment on another person's page that Jesus was not white. They asked me to remove it, and I did, despite the fact that the truth is that Jesus was not white. They said it was offensive to Christians anyway. And they cited my posts about the children that died in Canadian residential schools as offensive to Catholics. I find it strange that Jeff opened up the meeting by stating his respects to the Aboriginal nation that the meeting was taking place on, yet he supports my being censored for speaking out forcefully for Canadian Indigenous peoples. It's one thing to recite words. It's quite another to champion the cause of the victims of racism and genocide. Jeff states as fact that I left SSCS because I objected to having my social messaging controlled by the board. That's absolutely not true. I did refrain from posting political and religious posts except when I felt disgusted by a situation like the genocide of the residential schools. It was not even an issue until after I resigned, and that registration had nothing to do with the social network posts. I also never attacked SSCS. I simply stated my reasons for my resignation. I did ask Global and other countries to post it in the interest of transparency. The Global Board refused to even notify the Sea Shepherd leaders in other countries. Sea Shepherd France, Sea Shepherd UK, and Sea Shepherd Brazil did publish my resignation letter, and their members were happy to be informed and not kept in the dark. Jeff did not explain why Global did not want to post the letter, nor did he explain about the legal threats made by SSCS against Global for trademark violations, including a threat against Australia and New Zealand specifically for using the logo and name without SSCS approval. Jeff said I had not been involved with campaigns since 2014. This is not true. I initiated Operation Milagro and Operation Virus Hunter in 2015. I initiated Operations Treasured Island, Operation Mamachoka, Operation Clean Waves, and Operation Good Pirates of the Caribbean, the scientific voyages of the Martin Sheen. In fact, every Sea Shepherd U.S. campaign between 2014 and 2019 was under my direction. In 2019, Peter Hammerstead was appointed campaign director by the U.S. board. I supported Peter in that position until he resigned in April 2022 because of disagreements between himself and Pritam Singh. Between 2019 and 2021, I did over 200 media interviews for Sea Shepherd. Jeff suggested that I was doing nothing is false. Alex Cornelison also resigned because of disagreements with Pritam Singh, and yet they both expected me to continue to work with a person they distrusted and refused to work with themselves. Jeff then goes on to say that my fight has nothing to do with conservation. Let's be clear. It has everything to do with conservation. SSCS made their intention clear that they would no longer endorse or engage in direct action. They would no longer approve of controversial tactics and would no longer engage in confrontation. These are the very things that had defined Sea Shepherd for 45 years. He is simply being disingenuous, distracting, and misleading by making such an accusation. I resigned because of these reasons. I resigned because they were knocking the wind from out of our sails and changing our entire course and our very reason for being. Jeff made a bold-faced lie when he said it was discussed, and he said that they loved me, and my response is, if you love me, you will do as I say. I did not say that. I did not say that they had been complaining for months about Sea Shepherd taking credit for global campaigns and constantly telling me how they detested Pritam Singh. What I said was, let's fight him. They said they would rather not. The difference between Peter, Jeff, and Alex, and Lamia and I, is we're not afraid of Pritam Singh. We want to stop him from damaging Sea Shepherd. Jeff then goes on to say we work as a board and as a collective, and yet there was no discussion, there was no vote. He then says he told me to stop attacking the U.S., but I was not attacking the U.S. My entire action was in resigning. In other words, in explaining why I did what needed to be done. Jeff and others, except Lamia and I, were given a choice, quoting Churchill here. You had a choice between dishonor and war, and you chose dishonor but you will have war. SSCS will not stop with just removing me. Earlier this year, they registered a company in Delaware in the U.S. called Sea Shepherd International, and they made it very clear to Australia that SSCS held the trademark for Australia. It is fear that has motivated Jeff. When he says it's a fight just over egos, he is being very insulting. I have stepped back many times to give Jeff, Peter, Alex, Lamy, in fact everyone associated with Sea Shepherd, to express themselves and to do what they needed to do. I have never micromanaged anyone or dominated anyone. I have never put myself front and center. This is one of the most insulting things that Jeff said. When have I ever allowed my ego to interfere with anyone's efforts? I've encouraged and supported everyone, including Jeff Hansen, who is where he is today because I supported him and never interfered with him. Another blatant lie is that the board spoke to me about resigning. They did not. He then said I agreed to resign and would keep it private. And then he said I would see that as a betrayal and that I would be after Global. Total fabrication. When did this discussion take place? Because neither Lamia nor I were part of such a discussion. I never threatened to attack Global, and I've not attacked Global, and I have no intention of attacking Global. I simply stated that I received a message ordering my dismissal without any discussion or vote, and Lamia, as a global director, can attest to that. Jeff then says there was no choice but to remove me from the global board. Of course there was a choice. He said I was dismissed to ensure that the work continues. Jeff then accuses me of putting the directors into the position where they had to dismiss me for the good of Sea Shepherd, so to not compromise the agreement with SSCS that would stop SSCS from taking legal action against Global. Jeff then accuses me of saying it was my way or the highway, despite the fact there was never any discussion. But it was never my way or the highway anyway. It was always the traditional Sea Shepherd way, or the radical change by Sea Shepherd Conservation Society to be respectable, compromising, with a seat at the negotiating table with corporate and government officials. Jeff then answered questions. First relevant question. Paul says that the mission has changed. Is that true? Jeff answers, no. Yet the SSCS board has clearly stated that the mission has changed. He then deflects to some good works by Australia, completely ignoring the change of direction by SSCS and the reason I resigned. Jeff Hansen did not have a single discussion with me over these issues, over SSCS's change of direction or my resignation. He simply never spoke to me. Jeff says that Global has no control over Australia or of SSCS, but ignores the reality that SSCS clearly controls both Global and SS Australia by claiming to own the trademarks. The biggest lie of all was when a volunteer asked if Global took the action against me at the direction of SSCS, and Jeff said absolutely not. Yet my dismissal was a demand by Global, and Global complied without a discussion and without a vote. When asked why Lammy and I were not given the opportunity to vote, Jeff refused to answer that question. Jeff said under Dutch law, Alex had the right to dismiss me. That, in fact, is not true. Jeff said I did not have the right to the logo that I designed or the name I created. When asked about scrapping and selling of the SSCS vessels, Jeff, who knows absolutely nothing about ships, said the vessels were long in the tooth. The ships were in fact in good condition, and Jean-Paul Dejorier himself was disgusted that the vessel he had been sponsoring was scrapped without notification. When he asked SSCS to give the ship to me, SSCS informed him that they had offered the vessel to me, and I had refused it. That was a blatant lie. Jeff then goes on an ad hominem attack against me, claiming it was all about my ego, and I care more about my ego than I do about the ocean. Yet over the past decade, I have not once attempted to control any of the directors or entities. I have boosted Jeff, Peter, Alex, Lammy, Geert, and all the country leaders at every opportunity, giving them opportunities to shine and be productive without any interference or criticism at all from me. This is not about my ego. It's about a dangerous and fundamental change in course from Sea Shepherd being what we have always been to becoming something else altogether. I've always been a supporter of Jeff Hansen, always. So it is disappointing and hurtful to hear such words of betrayal from him. Jeff continues to falsely accuse me of attacking the SSCS and Sea Shepherd. Jeff blames the membership of the board of SSCS on me. The inclusion of property developers, a captive dolphin researcher, Florida real estate people as being my choice, Whenever since I was removed from these board, these people were added by Pritam Singh and my objections were ignored. In July, 2 directors who supported me were dismissed and replaced after being asked if they supported me. Blaming me for this board makeup is deplorable. I did not even know these people. As for being friends with Pritam Singh, that is not what it seems. Yes, he helped me back from exile. Yes, he helped me to get reestablished in the USA after Japan filed a red notice against me. Yes, he was helpful in administrative structuring of Sea Shepherd, but he went too far in changing the course of what we have always been into an agenda he decided upon. Yes, I had gratitude to Pritam Singh for the help he gave me, but gratitude cannot be repaid with demands for submission, and that I refused to do. In June 2022, when I told the board I could not support or participate with these radical changes, I was told I was an employee and that I needed to do what I was told. I was reminded about how much I was paid. And yes, I was paid handsomely and for a very good reason. Pritam said the staff should not be paid more than me. I did not ask for a high salary, and the fact that I rejected this bribe and resigned is evidence of what my priorities are. They were not paying me, they were buying me to be their figurehead while increasingly working to marginalize me. My response was to resign. My resignation was not about ego, it was about direction. Jeff downplayed our campaign in the Southern Ocean, citing that we only saved 6,500 whales. Really? Only 6,500 whales? He neglected to mention that we drove the entire Japanese whaling fleet out of the Southern Ocean. He neglected to mention that we shut down drift net fishing worldwide in the 90s. He neglected to mention we knocked the bottom out of the Canadian sealing industry. His statement that more has been accomplished in the last 5 years than ever before is simply self-serving, delusional, and untrue. Jeff finished by saying it was a choice between the work we do and not doing it. My position is that the work is not continuing, and it is my intention to see that it does continue. I'm not condemning Jeff Hansen. He had his talking points and he delivered them. He is motivated by fear, and considering the amiable relationship we have had for so many years, I don't think there is any personal animosity. He just needs to step back and reflect on what this is all about. It is about the U.S. branch of Sea Shepherd threatening Sea Shepherd Global in Australia and New Zealand with the trademark violations. It is about SSCS changing the course of the Sea Shepherd ships towards something we have never been and where we should never go. The world has hundreds of marine conservation organizations, but only one Sea Shepherd with the courage, the passion, and the imagination to say the things that need to be said and to do the things that need to be done. We have been unique, we have been different, we have been effective, and we have been the spearhead for action. It is my refusal to blunt that spearhead, my refusal to be mediocre, my refusal to compromise with the forces of doom and destruction that caused me to resign and apparently is now the cause for the bitterness and anger towards me. I'm not angry with anyone. I know what I need to do, and that is to rebuild, to reestablish, and to reset the course, to carry on, and to continue what we have always done best. People now have a choice. I had nothing when I left Greenpeace, and from that nothing, I, with the help of many others, created a movement. That movement is independent of any name. Names change, movements evolve. We want to work with Sea Shepherd, but if Sea Shepherd does not choose to work with us, we will move on. The stakes are too high to wallow in the mud of complacency and inaction. Jeff, you have said I betrayed you and the other global directors, and if you mean by betrayal my refusal to submit to the demands of SSCS, then yes, I have betrayed you. But what I have not betrayed is my allegiance to what Sea Shepherd is and must continue to be. I did not establish Sea Shepherd for the purpose of aggressively marketing merchandising or to make compromises with governments and industrial fisheries. I created Sea Shepherd to make waves. It's easy to sail on calm waters in mild breeze, and quite another to weather the storms, and my objective in founding Sea Shepherd was to ride the storms. Change does not come about by sitting safely in port. Jeff, I wish you well, and I don't want to discourage you. You have a strategy, well, I hope you do, so do what you need to do. I will attend the Australian board meeting. The board members can choose to vote me off or the board or not. It does not matter. I won't be saying the line you fabricated for me like it's my way or the highway. I don't mind being on your highway. But if the board decides that I am an obstacle, I have an exit, and I will happily take that exit to our mutual satisfaction. The ocean is dying, and I intend to do everything in my power to defend and protect life and diversity in the sea before we run out of time. For when the ocean dies, our children die. Thank you.